So one of the goals of this is I'm trying to get us to talk about subjects that we as Americans find difficult to talk about. To that end, immigration, that we ended up having a conversation about immigration. And I just want to say that what we did is pretty rare in America. You had a spectrum of opinions, you had people disagreeing, and everybody listened, nobody heckled, and I suspect you'll be able still to take table fellowship in a moment and pass the peace at the Eucharist, except you're not allowed to because of coronavirus. And just marvel at that. You know, let's just pause. You're doing something that America needs to do, but America's finding really difficult. So just marvel at what happened as I went around the room. And I deliberately went to the two extremes first. You know, that was deliberate. I thought, let's put the two, you know, I didn't go to the centre and find all the people who say, well, I think they've got something right, they've got something right. No, I went to those who said, that's completely wrong. So, but that was good, that was good. Right, let's see if we can be as mature over guns. Now, let me just say something. I have the wrong accent for what follows.
Better let me lead this.
And I need to check what positions I decided we were going to go for. So we're going to go for, okay, John Paul Stevens. So we're going for three positions here. So let's divide the room into three areas. So this quarter is the position of Justice Stevens, who argued that the time has come for the Second Amendment to be either repealed or amended. This position over here is the position that says the Second Amendment was put in by the founders for a good reason. It safeguards liberty, and we want to safeguard it. Thank you very much. We don't want power of force being just held by the federal government. And this position over here, which has the privilege of a half, which is the position that says, no, the Second Amendment's fine, but it doesn't mean unlimited access to weapons. There needs to be proper gun control. So those are three positions, and as I've done before, I'm going to defend each position in turn. So I'm going to start over here. Do you know, there are lots of things that people from outside don't get about America. American exceptionalism is true, and partly it's a matter of size. There's a reason why the Brits can do away with guns, because it's a small island, 70 million people live in a landmass which is about a third of Texas. I mean, so in a small landmass, where you're always near a hospital or a police force or somebody to rescue you, you know, of course there's no, I mean, you're a maximum of 8 miles away from a police station in the UK. There is nothing equivalent to living in Alabama in a rural town. There's nothing equivalent to living on a farm with 11 acres. And on that farm, knowing that the nearest town is 40 miles away or 50 miles away. There's nothing like that. And therefore, America has always had a need, by virtue of the sheer size and the population density, of people taking some responsibility for their safety. Which means a handgun. You know, there's nothing wrong with a person deciding, I want a handgun in my home, thank you very much. And I want to be able to get that relatively easily. Why not? You know, and if somebody invades my home, I want to be able to go and defend my kid. When my husband's away, visiting or whatever, I, as the mother, want to be able to take a gun and make sure that the person coming into the house doesn't hurt my kid. And it's no point saying to me, well, call the police, because the police are 40 miles away. By the time they get there, I will have been raped and my kid will be shot. So, by just sheer geography, America will always be different from all those European countries that ban guns. It's because we're a big landmass which is relatively empty. I know it doesn't feel like that if you live in urban America, and of course that's where all the gun control advocates are. They're urbanites. Where, yeah, sure, they get to bed every night not worrying about the fact that somebody's going to break in and they can call the police quickly and the police can get there fast. That's the definition of a city. But they're ignoring the experience of the rest of America. Okay, so that's just the pragmatic argument for the availability of guns. Urban America needs to just respect that rural America likes to have a gun and needs a gun. And one thing that's happening all the time in this debate is urban America is just really intolerant of rural America. It goes over and over and over and over again. Okay, that's stage one. But let's move to beyond the pragmatic argument for guns. Let's actually move to a point of principle. When the founders put together the Constitution of the United States, they were very aware of the power of government to have all the munitions, all the power, all the access to weaponry. They were very aware of that. You know, this is a nation birthed from persecution, from governments that exploited and abused minorities. And therefore they built into the Constitution a provision that it's not just the government that has the power of force. That power needs to be diffused. That power needs to be shared. And therefore, in America, it is shared by virtue of the Second Amendment. So it was a good idea. It was just right. It was appropriate. It's an insight. And believe me, it does protect America against the possible of a dictatorship. It helps. It is a legitimate mechanism. People know that there are other people who have weapons and can use those weapons effectively. The power of force does not just reside in the arms of government. Now, where does a Christian stand on this question? Well, a Christian is entitled to say that self-defense is an appropriate ethic. The tradition has always upheld the right to using force to protect yourself. I admire those pacifists who talk otherwise in grandiose and magical terms about the fact that, you know, the New Testament teaches pacifism, but that's not where I am. I think sometimes the only solution to a problem of force is to have access to force yourself. And therefore, as a Christian, I have a gun. And as a Christian, I support neighborhoods and men and women having guns. I support the Second Amendment, and I think it's one of the great things of this country. One PS. The National Rifle Association has become the bugbear of the Episcopal Church. Here's an interesting statistic that not many people know about. Not one of the mass killings for which the National Rifle Association is constantly attacked for has been caused by a member of the NRA. Not one. Look, we have a gun epidemic in this country. The problem with guns, see, isn't actually defending yourself from the person who breaks through the window. The problem with guns is the person who's 48, frustrated in their career, and finally drives 3 miles, taking their handgun with them and committing suicide. The problem with guns is the epidemic of young people who are having accidents in their home. The problem with guns is that it creates a culture where people have an instrument that's not just a knife that can injure, but a gun that's more likely to terminate a life. It is true that you'll find mass killings in no other major democracy. We have them habitually, all the time. And we have them because there are just lots of weapons around. They're easy to obtain. We have virtually no controls. You can be suicidal, you can be depressed, you can have a history of abuse with your spouse, and you can easily get a gun in this country. And once you put guns in the hands of the unstable, then it's likely that that person will take and use that gun in a way that will leave a family without a kid, leave a spouse without their loved one. The solution to gun violence is fewer guns. This mantra, the only way to stop a bad person with a gun is to have a good person with a gun, that doesn't follow. It's only a matter of time before you have some well-meaning security person who will accidentally shoot an imagined threat and a life will be dead in this or that venue, in a church even. No, the solution is we don't need weapons that can kill each other. We don't need to live in a culture where weapons that kill each other are readily available and constantly in the hands of those who shouldn't have it. We need to start recognizing that the Second Amendment has become a weapon in its own right. And therefore, what we need to start doing is advocating for the repeal of the Second Amendment. Now, of course, that'll take years, but hey, gay marriage took years. America is good at taking years and getting to a place that people had never imagined we can get to. And what's the work of the church? You know, the weird thing about our gun culture is it feeds on all the things that are anti-biblical. You know, what did Jesus say? Do not worry, says Jesus in Matthew chapter 6. Do not worry. Do not be anxious. Gun culture feeds on anxiety. I'm scared of being burgled. I'm scared of being raped. I'm scared of having to... Look, the truth is, the Christian witness at this time is that really is a God. The Christian witness at this time is whenever you worry about anything, coronavirus, taking a train trip, your kid going away, turn that worry into a prayer and give it to God. And therefore, as part of that Christian witness, we should be striving for a country without guns. Now, you can abolish the Second Amendment and still allow guns. When you think about it, every other country still has guns. You can have a gun in Britain, you can have a gun in Australia. So guns can still be available, but they're heavily controlled. You don't actually need the Second Amendment to have some guns in your culture. But if you advocate for the abolition of the Second Amendment, then you'll stop this legal provision that keeps cities and neighbourhoods and states being battered by this amendment and being forbidden to introduce any sort of rational sort of gun control. So do the Christian thing. Take a stance where we invite people to get over their fear, get over their anxieties, trust in a world without guns, and start advocating for the abolition of the Second Amendment. And stop this culture which is now habitual, that from time to time we see a massacre of a school, or in a Walmart, or at a pop festival. I'm happy to concede that the Second Amendment's here to stay. You know, we've got to be realistic. There is something in the DNA of this country. You know, we were settlers. You know, the Wild West was a real frontier. We are highly individualistic in the way we engage and look at the world. So sure, and I quite hear the geographical necessity for a young wife, perhaps married to the military, who wants something at their farm where they can protect themselves and others. There can't be anything wrong with a person having a gun. But do you really need an AK-47? Do you really need a weapon that can only do one thing, and that is take out literally thousands of people in an instance without barely being reloaded? And you've got to remember, when the Second Amendment was written, it was a musket, for heaven's sake. It would take them 10 minutes to reload that. So, you know, I mean, surely we can have some beer media here. This is what Episcopalians are in the business of. Some sort of middle way that simply says, yeah, we understand the Second Amendment. Yeah, people can have a gun for personal safety, but there are certain types of weapons you shouldn't have. And sure, there are certain categories of people who shouldn't have a gun. And also, when somebody is clearly likely to damage themselves or others because they're in an abusive relationship with their spouse or whatever, they should have their gun taken away. Bring back sensible gun control and don't lapse into this partisan battle. The problem with sensible gun control is we all know it won't stop with sensible gun control. You can see one regulation, they'll ask for another. And to tell you the truth, every single proposed sensible gun control will not stop almost any of the massacres. So, don't be misled. That really is a temptation. And as Christians, we're supposed to resist temptations. They are people which will lead to that. I just don't really buy that. You know, in the 80s and 90s, the National Rifle Association supported sensible gun control rate measures. We've got to get back to that. Because it's their inability to move to a sensible position on some sort of gun control that's feeding this. I'm delighted to hear that I'm underpinning that position, and I hope that this position's fed. You know, it is possible to live without guns. Sure, you can use them for hunting. I think that's a perfectly proper use of a gun. But the Second Amendment has become a weapon that is now being used by the Supreme Court to forbid just sensible gun legislation. It was part of an age that's now gone. And anyway, it wouldn't work against the federal government, lots of individuals having even AK-47. So, let's just get beyond that idea and just face up to the fact that that legislation needs to go, and then America can decide what we want to do around guns, and it's just a matter of legislation, and there's none of this constitutional right talk. Take a second to talk to your neighbour, think, and then decide where